his oath in the new national capital, his inauguration today. And they write that Jefferson's second inauguration in 1805 gave birth to the other tradition. After the swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol, the president made his way home down Pennsylvania Avenue.
And Thomas Jefferson, when he was inaugurated as president, was living in a boarding house up by the current Library of Congress, which is just to the right there on the far side of the Capitol. Aubrey's in Coventry, Connecticut. And Aubrey, what would you like to hear from Vice President Biden, or President-elect Biden, sorry about that, as far as the theme of American unity goes?
I want to see Biden take care of the younger generation. I'm 22 years old. I believe that the younger generation is the future, and I also feel like he has divided us as a nation just due to the misinformation, the hatred, the immaturity. I just feel like he's not set a great example for the younger generation.
Aubrey, what kind of work do you do in Coventry? Are you a student?
Yes, I am.
And what?
Veterinary medicine.
Good luck to you. Tom's in Ontario, Canada. Tom, thanks for watching us in Canada. What kind of message?
It'll be peaceful transition of power. In Canada, our transitions are based more on common law, where there isn't a constitution to follow for transitioning between administrations. And our governments are ultimately beholden to the crown and not the people. We still don't even elect our head of state and senators.
So that said, Biden.
I would say unity and to put America's stamp back on the world.
That's Tom in Ontario, and this is Leslie up in Connecticut, Norwalk, Connecticut. Leslie, good morning to you. Why are you watching C-SPAN today, and are you planning on watching all day?
Good morning. I'm actually, that's my favorite part. Your question about, what do I want to hear? When I first told the screener, I said, I'll be grateful to have an adult in the room. And then I rethought myself and said, hey, we've got to start with ourselves and, not saying things like adult in the room. And I'd really like to hear him talk to everyone to, stop the rhetoric and start with ourselves and correct ourselves when we do stuff like that.
So, have you found yourself being guilty of?
But it's been difficult these last 4 years to not use that and not get riled up about the verbiage that's been used. And I hope to hear him say, we've all got to check ourselves.
That's Leslie in Connecticut. And are you waiting on your COVID results? Is that what you told us at the beginning?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Were you exposed?
No, but I've got some symptoms, so I'm hopeful it's just a...
Chauncey, have you been around long enough to have observed other inaugurations? And if so, which ones are memorable to you?
I haven't actually observed all that many. Good morning to you as well. The first one I remember watching was Obama's in 2008. I don't believe I watched in 2012 the Marine Band or someone play Fanfare for the Common Man. There was a lot of elegance to that presentation, and Obama's speech was wonderful. That's we got to get a taste of his oratory skills. And the inauguration in 2016 starkly contrasted that. I'm not going to repeat what George Bush Jr. said about Trump's speech, but it was uncanny, it was eerie, and it seemed pointed as if he was deliberately trying to create an image of America that he could then manipulate and use to manipulate his base, unfortunately.
All right, the theme this year. What do you want to hear from Joe Biden? If you were writing a speech, Chauncey, what would you put in there? What's that line?
Restoring faith in our American news institutions and media outlets. I think that's something that really took a hit during the Trump presidency, and that's something that continues to stoke intentions. I think that would go a long way, if not directly addressing the lack of unity. That would be a place to start. If we could be on the same page about what is real, what is not, and most importantly, if he could signal a departure from the Trumpian misinformation, I think most Americans would breathe a sigh of relief.
That's Chauncey in Hermosa Beach, California, as we continue to watch the arrivals at the Capitol. But let's check in again with Greta Bronner.
President-elect Joe Biden tweeting out this morning, "It's a new day in America." And his former boss, the former president, Barack Obama, tweeting out, Capitol Hill, Manu Raju of CNN notes that George W. Bush and Laura Bush have arrived at the Capitol for today's ceremony. And Kamala Harris, the incoming vice president, who notes that a schedule sent to National Security Council staff Tuesday night shows more than 36 members of the incoming Biden national security staff plan to be in place by midday today when the president-elect is sworn in. She notes that the schedule shows that some of the staffers were in place at 10 a.m., 2 hours before the swearing in, a sign that the work could begin from the first minute President-elect Joe Biden takes office. And also reporting from Jennifer Epstein, Joe Biden will take office later today and begin a flurry of executive actions, including stopping border wall construction, revoking the Keystone Pipeline permit, rejoining the Paris Agreement and the World Health Organization, and
President-elect Biden today.
Good morning, Peter. Yes. Speaking to the America United theme, I would love a recognition of, before there can be healing for the nation as a whole, there needs to be healing within the individual factions that exist in our country. And I'm calling you as an independent evangelical Christian who has recognized that I can identify with one of your previous callers who said, you know, there's a fear to speak up. Evangelicals are not cookie cutters who all believe the same thing. And it has just broken my heart to see the violence that has erupted with flags waving in the name of Jesus. That is not who we are. It's not who we're called to be. But oftentimes, those of us that oppose such behaviors have had to be silent because we're afraid of repercussion, and get back to the business of being Jesus's hands and feet and trying to reach a hurting world that's terrified of this pandemic right now so that we can have true healing as a nation. President Biden and President Trump have my prayers every day. And Peter, I also want you to know my heart was with everyone at C-SPAN, and you guys were being thought of and prayed for from my house. Thank you so much for what you do for the public and for America.
And that's Catherine in Hewitt, New Jersey. Ka-ori is calling in from Tokyo. First of all, did I say your name?
Almost.
Okay, say
My
it for
name
us,
is
please. Kaori?
Kaori.
Thank
Yes.
you so much. Why are you watching
Hi.
C-SPAN today?
This is my first time to see inauguration. I'm saying right because of time zone, but I'm long around enough to attend peace movement at 3 years old in 1969. I have similar with Vice President Harris, so I feel related. Yes. What I should say?
No. Tell us how do you feel about President-elect Biden being...
Especially Japan is very divided. I'm very liberal kind of Japanese, very rare breed. But Japanese government have been get along Trump administration. So
yeah, Mr. Abe and Mr. Trump seem to be pretty good friends, didn't they?
When I was university student, like
in 1969, late 80s. Okay.
No, 80s.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for
So
calling
I
in
hope-
today, and I hope
Yeah.
you continue to watch us. What channel are you watching us on, or what station?
I'm on YouTube.
On YouTube. Okay. Thank
Yes.
you. I'm glad you found
Thank
us.
you.
Sarah in Yakima, Washington. Hi, Sarah.
Hi. Sorry about that. My voice is off.
Okay, what would you like to say today about today's inauguration?
I don't normally care much for politics, but 2020 was no doubt a rather terrifying year and fixed. And I just wanted to wish President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala the best of luck in their presidential journey.
And what would you like to hear from President Biden today in his inaugural address?
I would just like to hear that he's going to try his best. That, because it's like my mom said.
What do you do in Yakima, Washington, Sarah?
I currently am jobless, unfortunately. All I really do is...
Yeah, thanks for calling in. Richard is in Netherland, Colorado. Richard, we're about 2 hours away from a new president of the United States. What do you think about that?
Just fantastic. You know, I'm looking forward to this administration with all the nonsense that is going on. You know, we have people dead right now. I'm hoping his speech is going to be, I don't know how it can be about unity, which is nice, but I think civility would work to get towards unity, because people just need to be civilized, use common sense, and choose civility. You know, when unity, how it's tough when you come in as president and you're going to remove a lot of things that people that are supporters of Trump aren't going to like you removing those things. So I'm just hoping choose civility. You want unity, legalize federally legalize marijuana. That'll bring unity to the country.
And that's Richard in Netherland, Colorado. Tom is in Schenectady, New York. Tom, are you looking forward to noon today?
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the inauguration, certainly. And if you're not excited by any presidential inauguration, I think you're really missing the point of what's going on. But to answer your question, in terms of what I'd like to hear today, I expect to hear him talk about unity. I want to hear him certainly speak about personal responsibility. Piece of unity is related to what people are being fed, if you will, when they're watching media, whether it be Fox or CNN, regardless of where you're getting your news from, because the people who I know who are not watching 24/7 cable news are far more unified, or certainly far more likely to be unified, than those who do. So I'm not sure he's going to bite the hand that feeds him. I'd certainly, as a career politician, I don't think that he will. But I would like to, if you're asking the question in an idea, those who share the news or spread the news, to, as C-SPAN does, let people get the full story and judge for themselves, as opposed to some talk.
Personal responsibility aspect and the need to reach out to all sides.
Of course. Look, we're 330 million some odd people in this country, and only 150 million of them voted. So while we can puff out our chest and talk about how voter turnout was the highest it ever was, it still wasn't unanimous. There were still many people who chose not to vote. And there's a large contingency in this country, myself included, who are just disgusted ourselves, health related. If you're, putting on more weight than you'd like, if you're not, eating the right things, if you're having an issue as it relates to your job that could be within your control, that's not the government's fault. That's not the government's responsibility. And I think that oftentimes, far too often, I should say, we don't look at ourselves the way that we ought to. And the news is certainly making it easier to look at somebody else and lay blame.
And each inauguration is different. Some have been on the backs of airplanes. Some have been in the White House. This one is on the west front of the Capitol. Ronald Reagan was the first president to hold it. Executive power has happened, and several VIPs arriving at the Capitol for the ceremony, and former presidents as well. It looks like Michelle Obama and her husband, the former president, and the Obamas, the Clintons, and the George W. Bushes will all be attending a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington Cemetery with the new president and his wife this afternoon. C-SPAN is what you should look for. Grace is in Fayetteville, North Carolina, as the music starts on the West Front.
Did you know?
Grace, you're on C-SPAN.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Good.
Grace, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina. This is my first time watching the inauguration. I'm actually watching it right now in class with everyone in my AP government class. There's about like 20 of us in here right now. And I just wanted to say that I'm very excited watching this morning.
People in your classes are being held by Zoom?
We're
actually
actually in person. We're social distancing right now,
All right.
but there's about 20 of us in class.
Who's your teacher?
Stephanie Eastman.
Eastman? Ms. Eastman?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir.
And what school do you go to?
I go to Freedom Christian Academy.
Freedom Christian. So
That's my class.
let's hear, Grace, and you do the counting. How many people supported Joe Biden during the campaign?
Everyone raise their hands who supports.
Who supports Joe Biden?
7, 8. I think there's about, we're counting, about 9 who support Trump. So it's pretty even.
So pretty even.
Yes, sir.
I'm sure Ms. Eastman has talked about this extensively, but the peaceful transfer of power that this nation has. What do you think about that?
She's actually right here. She's actually right here and would love to speak on that.
All right.
Hi, I'm Ms. Eastman.
Hi, Ms. Eastman.
We have talked at length about that and how, it's happened since the Revolution of 1800 with Thomas Jefferson, and that this is, the bedrock of our democracy that we're watching today. So I'm honored to be here with all my students watching this.
And we're honored to have you call in. We're honored that you're watching us. Thank you, Ms. East, at Freedom Christian in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Let's return to
Thank you.
Let's return to Greta Bronner.
Peter, we showed our viewers earlier the Bible that President-elect Joe Biden will use when he is sworn in. Here's the image again from the New York Times. It's 5 inches thick. It's from 18. Then Senator-elect was sworn in for the first time in 1972. That image taken in the hospital when that deadly car crash happened with his wife and his daughter. And you can see in the foreground one of his sons who was injured in that car crash. The Matt Visor of the Washington in a hospital in 1973. He writes, now life and destiny have converged again in another moment of crisis, and a link to his piece on Inauguration Day.
And President-elect Biden and Mrs. Biden are still in St. Matthew's Church in downtown Washington. A lot of the other congregants have left already, or participants have left already, but the president-elect is still inside St. Matthew's. That's 8 blocks north of the White House, and then the next stop will be the Capitol, where a lot of people are arriving. As you can see, we're going to continue to just show you everything that's going on while we hear your voices about what you would like to hear with regard to American unity, which is the theme of this inauguration, or if you want to talk about a past inauguration, as several of our viewers have, we'd love to hear that as well. Tom is in Toronto. Tom, go ahead.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on. Ultimately, we are going to hear Biden touch on the issue of unity. What I would like to hear, but what I'm not too hopeful on hearing, are about 3 issues. I think the first being debt of the United States, which I think in past years has diminished with Trump's sort of go-it-alone approach.
And was President Trump a daily fixture in the Toronto news?
Quite a bit, for better or for worse. I think that as a Canadian, I am interested in Canadian politics, but a lot of American politics spill over into our country as well. And so in order to be politically engaged here, in many ways, you have to be politically engaged in the U.S. politics.
Tom, what do you do in Toronto?
I'm a teacher here.
And
I teach English, history, science, math, a whole bunch of stuff.
And is today an off day for you?
Today is Zoom or Google Meet day, depending on who you ask. But
have you returned to any in-person classes in Canada or in Toronto?
Originally, at the start of the semester, we did have in-person classes. Recently, we've had more lockdowns that have switched us back into online. And for the foreseeable future anyway, it looks like we will be online.
And that's Tom in Toronto. We appreciate your time.
Okay, great. now present the world premieres of 3 new fanfares written by American composers in honor of the 59th inaugural ceremonies. Fanfare for Democracy by James Stevenson, Fanfare Politia by Kimberly Archer, and Fanfare for Tomorrow by Peter Boyer. 17th Congress. The President elects cabinet members and agency designees. Their Excellencies, the Bilateral Chiefs of Mission, joined by Acting Dean of the Diplomatic Corps, His Excellency Salam Sabah. Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention toward the inaugural platform. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark A. Milley.
I'm standing here. Just got me going down memory lane.
and gentlemen, leadership of the United States House of Representatives, Republican Whip the Honorable Stephen Scalise, and Majority Whip the Honorable James E. Clyburn. Ladies and gentlemen, leadership of the United States Senate, President Pro Tempore Emeritus, the Honorable Patrick Leahy and Mrs. Marshall Leahy. Democratic Whip, the Honorable Dick Durbin and Mrs. Rima Doden. Majority Whip, the Honorable John Thune and Mrs. Kimberly Thune. Democratic Leader, the Honorable Charles Schumer and Mrs. Irish Wineshaw Schumer. And President Pro Tempore of the Senate, the Honorable Chuck Grassley and Mrs. Jennifer Hines.
Oh my gosh, it's going to be cold.
Ladies and gentlemen, former Vice President, the Honorable Dan Quayle. Ladies and gentlemen, the 42nd President of the United States, the Honorable William J. Clinton, and the Honorable Hillary Rodham Clinton. Ladies and gentlemen, the 43rd President of the United States, the Honorable George W. Bush and Mrs. Laura Bush. Ladies and gentlemen, the 44th President of the United States, the Honorable Barack H. Obama and Mrs. Michelle Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chief Justice of the United States, the Honorable John G. Roberts, Jr., and the Associate Justices of the Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen, the children of Vice President-elect Harris and Mr. Douglas Imhoff, Cole Mackin Imhoff, and Ella Rose Imhoff.
I know. Totally got cut off.
Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the Vice President, the Secretary of the Senate, the Honorable Julie E. Adams, and Chief Administrative Officer of the House of Representatives, Catherine Spendor. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President of the United States, the Honorable Michael R. Pence and Mrs. Karen Pence. Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the Vice President-elect, the Chief of Inaugural Ceremonies, Maria Miller-Lohmeyer, the Acting Deputy House Sergeant-at-Arms, Kevin Grubbs, and the Acting Deputy Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, United States Capitol Police Officer Private First Class Eugene O. Goodman. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice President-elect of the United States, Kamala Devi Harris, and Mr. Douglas Emhoff. Ceremonies, Staff Representative Alexandria Gordican-DeChico, accompanying the House Republican Leader, the Honorable Kevin McCarthy. Staff Representative Bridget Brennan, accompanying House Majority Leader, the Honorable Steny Hoyer and Mrs. Yvette Lewis. Staff Representative Kate Knudsen, accompanying Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Nancy Pelosi and Mr. Paul Pelosi. Staff Representative Lindsey Kerr, accompanying the Honorable Amy Klobuchar and Mr. John Bessler. Staff Representative Stephanie Hager-Mucko, accompanying Senate Majority Leader, the Honorable Mitch McConnell and the Honorable Elaine L. Chao. And Staff Representative Rochelle Graves Schroeder, accompanying the Chairman of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Ladies and gentlemen, accompanying the President-elect, the Staff Director of the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies, Fitzhugh Elder IV, the Acting House Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Tim Blodgett, and the Acting Senate Sergeant-at-Arms, Jennifer Hemingway. President-elect of the United States, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., and Dr. Jill Biden. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Please welcome the Honorable Amy Klobuchar.
President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, members of Congress and the judicial branch, former presidents and first ladies, vice presidents, leaders from abroad, and a whole bunch of Bidens. America, welcome to the 59th presidential inauguration, where in just a few moments, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will take their solemn oaths. This ceremony is the culmination of 244 years of a democracy. It is the moment when leaders brought to this stage by the will of the people promise to be faithful to our Constitution, to cherish it and defend it. It is the moment when they become, as we all should be, guardians of our country. Have we become too jaded, too accustomed to the ritual of the passing of the torch of democracy to truly appreciate what a blessing and a privilege it is to witness this moment? I think not. 2 weeks ago, when an angry, violent mob staged an insurrection and desecrated this temple of our democracy, it awakened us to our responsibilities as Americans. This is the day when our democracy picks itself up, brushes off the dust, and does what America always does: goes forward as a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This conveyance of a sacred trust between our leaders and our people takes place in front of this shining Capitol dome for a reason. When Abraham Lincoln gave his first inaugural address in front of this Capitol, the dome was only partially constructed, braced by ropes of steel. He promised he would finish it. He was criticized for spending funds on it during the Civil War. To those critics, he replied, "If the people see the Capitol going on, it is a sign we intend the Union shall go on." And it did, and it will. Generations of Americans gave their lives to preserve our republic in this place. Great legislation to protect civil rights and economic security and lead the world was debated and crafted under this dome. Now it falls on all of us, not just the two leaders we are inaugurating today, to take up the torch of our democracy, not as a weapon of political arson, but as an instrument for good. We pledge today never to take our democracy for granted as we celebrate its remarkable strength. We celebrate its resilience, its grit. We celebrate the ordinary people doing extraordinary things for our nation, the doctors and nurses on the front line of this pandemic, the officers in the Capitol, a new generation never giving up hope for justice. We celebrate a new president, Joe Biden, who vows to restore the soul of America and cross the river of our divides to a higher plane. And we celebrate our first African American, first Asian American, and first woman vice president, Kamala Harris, who stands on the shoulders of so many on this platform who have forged the way to this day. When she takes the oath of office, little girls and boys across the world will know that anything and everything is possible. And in the end, that is America, our democracy, a country of so much good. And today, on these Capitol, it is now my honor to introduce to you the senator who has worked with me and so many others to make this ceremony possible. My friend and the chair of the inaugural committee, Missouri Senator Roy Blunt.
Well, I should have known when Senator Klobuchar got involved, at least there'd be a touch of snow up here this morning. Of all the things we'd considered, I don't think snow was on my agenda until I walked out the door a moment ago. But thank you, Senator Klobuchar, and thanks to the other members of the Joint Congressional Committee on the inauguration as we officially began the 59th inaugural ceremony. I also want to thank when I chaired the inauguration 4 years ago, I shared President Reagan's 1981 description of this event as commonplace and miraculous. Commonplace because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Miraculous because we've done it every 4 years since 1789. Americans have celebrated this moment during war, during depression, and now during pandemic. Once again, all three branches of our government come together as the Constitution envisions. Once again, we renew our commitment to our determined democracy, forging a more perfect union. The belief that the United States can only fulfill its promise and set an example for others if we are always working to be better than we have been. The Constitution hadn't done that, the Magna Carta hadn't done that. Only the Constitution says the government exists because the people are the source of the reason it exists. They immediately followed those first three words with the words to form a more perfect union. The founders did not say to better would be the hallmark of a great democracy. The freedoms we have today, the nation we have today, is not here just because it happened, and they aren't complete. A great democracy working through the less than we hope to be. The assault on our Capitol at this very place just 2 weeks ago reminds us that a government designed to balance and check itself. Pandemic challenged our free and open society and called for extraordinary determination and sacrifice, and still challenges us today. Meeting that challenge head on have been and are healthcare workers, scientists, first responders, essential frontline workers, and so many others we depend on in so many ways. Today we come to this moment, people all over the world, as we're here, are watching and will watch what we do here. Our government comes together. The Congress and the courts join the transition of executive responsibility. One political party more pleased today and on every inaugural day than the other. But this is not a moment of division, it's a moment of unification. A new administration begins and brings with it a new beginning. And with that, our great national debate goes forward, and a determined democracy will continue to be essential in pursuit of a more perfect union and a better future for all Americans. What a privilege for me to join you today. Thank you. I'm pleased to call to the podium a longtime friend of the President-elect and his family, Father Leo O'Donovan, to lead us in an invocation. Please stand if you are able and remain standing for the national anthem and the pledge to our flag.
You in need, indeed on our knees. But we come still more with hope, and with our eyes raised anew to the vision of a more perfect union in our land, a union of all our citizens to promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. We are a people of many races, creeds, and colors, national background for the inauguration of George Washington 232 years ago. Archbishop Carroll prayed that his administration may be conducted in righteousness and be eminently useful to your people. Today we confess our past failures to live according to our vision of equality, inclusion, and freedom for all. Yet we resolutely commit still more now to renewing the vision, to caring for one another in word and deed, especially the least fortunate among us, and so becoming a light for the world. There is a power in each and every one of us that lives by turning to every other. It is called love, and its path is to give ever more of itself. Today, it is called American patriotism, born not of power and privilege, but of care for the common good, with malice toward none and with charity for all. For our new president, we beg of you the wisdom Solomon sought when he knelt before you and prayed for an understanding heart, so that I can govern your people and know the difference between right and wrong. We trust, and it will be given to you. Pope Francis has reminded us how important it is to dream together. By ourselves, he wrote, we risk seeing mirages, things that are not there. Dreams, on the other hand, are built together. Be with us, holy mystery of love, as we dream together. Help us under our new president to reconcile the people of our land, restore our dream and invest it with peace and justice.
Standing for the presentation of our national colors by the Armed Forces Color Guard, the singing of our national anthem, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ladies and gentlemen, here for the singing of our national anthem, accompanied by the President's own United States Marine Band, please welcome Lady Gaga.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave on the land of the free and the
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome from the City of South Fulton, Georgia Fire and Rescue Department, President of the International Association of Firefighters, Local 3920, Fire Captain Andrea M. Hall, for the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
What you are all about to be part of, America, is a historic moment of firsts. To administer the oath to our first inaugural stage, the first Latina to ever serve on the Supreme Court of the United States of America, Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
that I take this obligation freely.
Will well and faithfully discharge
That I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I am about to enter.
the duties of the office upon which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Please welcome Jennifer Lopez to perform This Land Is Your Land and America the Beautiful, accompanied by members of the President's Own United States Marine Band.
Well, that was great. The sun is shining, and Mr. President-elect, this is the first inauguration in the history of America where J-Lo was the warm-up act for Chief Justice Roberts. With that, it is now my to administer the presidential oath to the next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the oath of office, followed by musical honors.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
I, Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
Office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of my ability.
Will, to the best of my ability.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
Preserve, protect, and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
So help me.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
My fellow Americans, a moment we have all been waiting for. It is now my great privilege and high honor to be the first person to officially introduce the 46th President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden, Jr.
Chief Justice Roberts, Vice President Harris, Speaker Pelosi, Leader Schumer, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. This is America's day. This is democracy's day, a day of history and hope, of renewal and resolve, through a crucible for the ages, but of a cause, the cause of democracy. The people, the will of the people has been heard, and the will of the people has been heeded. We've learned again that democracy is precious. Democracy is fragile. So now, on this hallowed ground where just a few days ago, violence sought to shake the Capitol's very foundation, we come together as one nation, under God, indivisible, to carry out the peaceful transfer of power as we have for more than two centuries, and set our sights on the nation we know we can be and we must be. I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart, and I know who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service. But the American story depends not on any one of us, not on some of us, but on all of us, on we, the people, who seek a more perfect union. Through storm, much to repair, much to restore, much to heal, much to build, and much to gain. Few people in our nation's century virus, too. Millions of jobs have been lost. Hundreds of thousands of businesses closed. A cry for racial justice, a cry for survival comes from the planet itself. A cry that can't be any more desperate or any more clear. And now, a rise of political extremism, white supremacy, domestic terrorism, that we must confront and we will defeat. More than words, it requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity. Unity. In another January, on New Year's Day in 1863, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. When he put pen to paper, the president said, and I quote, "If my name ever goes down into history, it'll be for this act, and my whole soul is in it." My whole soul is in it. Today, on this January day, my whole soul is in this, bringing America together, uniting our people, uniting our nation. And I ask every American to join me in this cause. Uniting to fight the foes we face: anger, resentment and hatred, extremism, lawlessness, violence, disease, joblessness, and hopelessness. With unity, we can do great things, important things. We can right wrongs. We can rebuild the middle class and make health care secure for all. We can deliver racial justice, and we can make America once again the leading force for good in the world. I know speaking of unity can sound to some like a foolish fantasy these days. I know the forces that divide us are deep and they are real. Between the American ideal that we're all are created equal and the harsh, ugly reality that racism, nativism, fear, demonization have long torn us apart. The battle is perennial, and victory is never assured. Through Civil War, the Great Depression, World War, 9/11, through struggle, sacrifice, and setbacks, our better angels have always prevailed. We can do that now. History, faith, and reason show the way of unity. We can see each other not as adversaries, but as neighbors. We can treat each other with dignity and respect. We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury. No progress, only exhausting outrage. And unity is the path forward. And we must meet this moment as the United States of America. If we do that, I guarantee you we will not fail. We have never, ever, ever, ever failed in America when we've acted together. And so today, at this time, in this place, let's start afresh, all of us. Let's begin to listen to one another again, hear one another, see one another, show respect to one another. Politics doesn't have to be a raging fire, destroying everything in its path. Every disagreement doesn't have to be a cause for total war. And we must reject the culture in which facts themselves are manipulated and even manufactured. My fellow Americans, we have to be different than this. America has to be better than this. And I believe America is so much better than this. Just look around. Here we stand in the shadow of the Capitol Dome, as was mentioned earlier, completed amid the Civil War, when the Union itself was literally hanging in the balance. Yet we endured. We prevailed. Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change. Here we stand, across the Potomac from Arlington Cemetery, where heroes who gave the last full measure of devotion silenced the will of the people, to stop the work of our democracy, to drive us from this sacred ground. It did not happen. It will never happen. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Not ever. To all those who supported our campaign, I'm humbled by the faith you've placed in us. To all those who did not support us, let me say this. Hear me out as we move forward. Take a measure of me and my heart. The guardrails of our republic is perhaps this nation's greatest strength. Yet hear me clearly. Disagreement must not lead to disunion. And I pledge this to you. I will be a president for all Americans. All Americans. And I promise you, I will fight as hard for those who did not support me as for those who did. Many centuries ago, St. Augustine, a saint of my church, wrote that a people was a multitude defined by the common objects of their love. Defined by the common objects of their love. What are the common objects we as Americans love that define us as Americans? I think we know. Opportunity, security, liberty, dignity. It's a painful lesson. There is truth and there are lies. Lies told for power and for profit. And each of us has a duty and a responsibility as citizens, as Americans, and especially as leaders who have pledged to honor our Constitution and protect our nation. I understand that many of my fellow Americans view the future with fear and trepidation. I understand they worry about their jobs. I understand, like my dad, they lay at bed at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, can I keep my health care? Can I pay my mortgage? Thinking about their families, about what comes next. I promise you, I get it. Do or don't get their rural versus urban, or rural versus urban, conservative versus liberal. We can do this if we open our souls instead of hardening our hearts, if we show a little tolerance and humility, and if we're willing to stand in the other person's shoes, as my mom would say, just for a moment, stand in their shoes. Because here's the thing about life. There's no accounting for what fate will deal you. Some days, when you need a hand, we are this way, our country will be stronger, more prosperous, more ready for the future. And we can still disagree. My fellow Americans, in the work ahead of us, we're entering what may be the toughest and deadliest period of the virus. We must set aside politics and finally face this pandemic as one nation. One nation. And I promise you this, together. Look, folks, all my colleagues I serve with in the House and the Senate up here, we all understand the world is watching all of us today. So here's my message to those beyond our borders. America has been tested, and we've come out stronger for it. We will repair our alliances and engage with the world once again, not to meet yesterday's challenges, but today's and tomorrow's challenges. And we'll lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example, progress and security. Look, you all know we've been through so much in this nation. And in my first act as president, I'd like to ask you to join me in a moment of silent prayer. Remember all those who we lost in this past year to the pandemic. Those 400,000 fellow Americans, moms, dads, husbands, wives, sons, daughters, friends, neighbors, and co-workers. We'll honor them by becoming the people and the nation we know we can and should be lives and those left behind and for our country. Amen. Folks, this is a time of testing. We face an attack on our democracy and on truth, a raging virus, growing inequity, the sting of systemic racism, a climate in crisis. The fact is, we face them all at once. Presenting to be tested, are we going to step up, all of us? It's time for boldness, for there's so much to do. And this is certain. I promise you, we will be judged, you and I, by how we resolve these cascading crises of our era. We will rise to the occasion is the question. Will we master this rare and difficult hour? Will we meet our obligations and pass along a new and better world to our children? I believe we must. I'm sure you do as well. I believe we will. And when we do, we'll write the next great chapter in the history of the United States of America, the American story. A story that might sound something like a song that means a lot to me. It's called American Anthem. There's one verse that stands out, at least for me, and it goes like this. The work and prayers of century have brought us to this day. What shall be our legacy? What will our children say? Let's us add our own work and prayers to the unfolding story of our great nation. If we do this, then when our days are through, our children and our children's children will say of us, they gave their best, they did their duty, they healed a broken land. My fellow Americans, I close the day where I began, with the sacred oath. Before God and all of you, I give you my word. I will always level with you. I will defend the Constitution. I'll defend our democracy, thinking not of power, but of possibilities, not of personal interest, but the public good. And together, we shall write an American story of hope, not fear, of unity, not division, of light, not darkness, a story of decency and dignity, love and healing, greatness and goodness. May this be the story that guides us, the story that inspires us, and the story that tells ages yet to come that we answered the call of history. We met the moment. America secured liberty at home and stood once again as a beacon to the world. That is what we owe our forebears, one another, and generation to follow. So, with purpose and resolve, we turn to those tasks of our time, sustained by faith, driven by conviction, and devoted to one another and the country we love with all our hearts. May God bless America, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Garth Brooks to perform Amazing Grace.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. When we bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we've... This last verse with me, not just the people here, but the people at home, at work, as one, united. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. But now I'm found, was blind, but now
Hard not to be reminded of President Obama's singing that same song that the mother of man possibly come. And we're going to finish with those two things. Let me introduce Amanda Gorman, our nation's first ever National Poet Laureate.
President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. What just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is hours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president. That doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gazes not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the wind-swept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered as we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there is always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
Thank you, Amanda Gorman. Now for our benediction, I'm pleased to introduce Reverend Dr. Sylvester Beeman, the pastor of the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Wilmington, Delaware, a friend of President Biden for 30 years.
As a nation and people of faith gathered in this historical moment, let us unite in prayer and the holiness of your beauty. We seek your face, your smile, your warm embrace. We petition you once more in this celebration. We pray for divine favor upon our President, Joseph R. Biden, and our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, and their family. We further ask that you would extend the same favor upon our Vice President, Kamala D. Harris, and our second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, and their family. More than ever, we need you, for in you we discover our common humanity. In our common humanity, we will seek out the wounded and bind their wounds. We will seek healing for those who are sick and diseased. We will mourn our dead, lead to the oppressed, acknowledge sin, and seek forgiveness, thus grasping reconciliation. In discovering our humanity, we will seek the good in and for all our neighbors. We will love the unlovable, remove the stigma of the so-called untouchables. We will care for our most vulnerable, our children, the elderly, emotionally challenged, and the poor. We will patient beyond correction. We will extend opportunity to those locked out of opportunity. We will make friends of our enemies. We will make friends of our enemies. People, your people, shall no longer raise up weapons against one another. We will rather use our resources for the national good and become a beacon of life and goodwill to the world. And neither shall we learn hatred anymore. We will lie down in peace and not make our neighbors afraid. In you, O God, we discover our humanity. In our humanity, we discover our commonness. Beyond the difference of color, creed, preserving the land, reaping from it a sustainable harvest and securing its wonder and miracle-giving power for generations to come. This is our benediction, that from these hallowed grounds, where slaves labored to build this shrine and citadel to liberty and democracy, let us all acknowledge from the indigenous came from Europe and every corner of the globe, from the wealthy to those struggling to make it, from every human being regardless of their choices, that this is our country. As such, teach us, O God. As such, teach us, O God, to live in kingdom's goal, to your glory, majesty, dominion, and power forever. Hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. In the strong name of our collective faith. Amen.
Please remain standing as the Armed Forces Color Guard retires our national colors. Reasons, your ushers will release your section in an organized manner, following the playing of our national march, The Stars and Stripes Forever.
Thank you all. Thank you. Need a lot of work for you. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.